want to talk about that. Mitch
well, we
McConnell
know there's some
historical
precedents with Clinton and with Nixon.
And on those precedents, it's important to realize, and Lindsay doesn't want to talk about this either, in both of those prior impeachments, there were lengthy closed-door investigations, fact-finding before grand juries in both Nixon and in Clinton that we didn't have here. And why? Because Bill Barr wouldn't authorize a criminal investigation into the president's misconduct vis-a-vis Ukraine. That's why we're having to do this.
Two quick things, if you can. What's the timeline here? When do you expect public hearings? And do you believe John Bolton is important to this, and will he testify?
We will be doing public hearings, and I think we'll be doing them soon.
In a couple of weeks before Thanksgiving?
You know, I don't want to give precise timing because, in part, we're struggling with the White House's continuing efforts to obstruct our investigation, to obstruct witnesses coming in. My guess is they're going to fight us having John Bolton in, for example. John Bolton is a very important witness. We already know from the testimony of others that this is someone who's concerned that people in the State Department, Ambassador Sondland and others, Mulvaney, were cooking up a drug deal, and by that he meant a corrupt deal involving withholding a White House meeting, or perhaps the withholding of aid as well, for these political purposes. So obviously he has very relevant information, and we do want him to come.
We begin with the President Trump's first Homeland Security advisor, Tom Bossert, whose core responsibilities included election security and helping coordinate the U.S. government response to Russia's interference in the 2016 election. Tom, thank you for joining us this morning. You know, the whistleblower's complaint says that White House officials were deeply disturbed by the president's phone call with Zelensky. What was your reaction?
Yeah, I'm deeply disturbed by it as well, and this entire mess has me frustrated, George. Thanks for having me on. You and I both lived through the impeachment of President Clinton and saw how frustrating and dividing it can be, and I've just spent the week overseas, and I'll tell you, the whole world is watching this. The removal of a president is a big and serious deal, but the removal of a president in not only a democracy, but the biggest democracy in the world is really a weighty matter, and I hope that everyone can sift through the evidence and be very careful, as I've seen a lot of rush to judgment this week. That said, it is a bad day and a bad week for this president and for this country if he is asking for political dirt on an opponent. But it looks to me like the other matter that's far from proven is whether he was doing anything to abuse his power and withhold aid in order to solicit such a thing. That seems to be far from proven, and it's going to be the focus of, I think, our Congress for the next year.
That's the investigation. Let's walk through some of what's in the whistleblower's complaint, and I want to show it up on the screen. It starts with President Zelensky saying, "I'd like to thank the president for your great support in the area of defense. We're ready to continue to cooperate for the next step. Specifically, we're almost ready to buy more javelins from the United States for defense purposes." And then the president says, "I would like you to do us a favor, though, because our country has been through a lot and Ukraine knows a lot about it. I would like you to find out what happened with this whole situation with Ukraine. They say CrowdStrike. I guess you have one of your wealthy people to survey. They say Ukraine has it. There are a lot of things that went on, the whole situation. Now, what the president is referring to there is a debunked conspiracy theory that somehow Ukraine, not Russia, hacked the Democratic emails in 2016, and that Ukraine might have the DNC server or Hillary's emails. The details are both convoluted and false. And during your time in the White House, you explained that to the president, right?
I did. It's not only a conspiracy theory, it is completely debunked. You know, I don't want to be glib about this matter, but last year, retired former Senator Judd Gregg wrote a piece in the Hill magazine saying the 3 ways or the 5 ways to impeach oneself. And the third way was to hire Rudy Giuliani. And at this point, I am deeply frustrated with what he and the legal team is doing and repeating that debunked theory to the president. It sticks in his mind when he hears it over and over again. And for clarity here, George, let me just again repeat that it has no validity. The United States government reached its conclusion on attributing to Russia the DNC hack in 2016 before it even communicated it to the FBI and long before the FBI ever knocked on the door at the DNC. So a server inside the DNC was not relevant to our determination, to the attribution. It was made up front and beforehand. And so while servers can be important in some of the investigations that followed, it has nothing to do with the U.S. government's attribution of Russia for the DNC hack.
Yet the president keeps on repeating it. You condemn Mayor Giuliani for continuing to tell the president to do that. How do you explain why the president brings this up in a meeting with the Ukrainian president? That is a form of pressure.
And American journalists. So this is a great day. A ruthless killer has been brought to justice. Not the end of ISIS by any means, and we've had some recent serious setbacks with the release of over 100 ISIS fighters. That struggle is going to have to go on, made more difficult by the fact that we have betrayed the Kurds and withdrawn our forces from part of Syria. But nonetheless, an important victory against this brutal killer. In terms of notifying the Gang of Eight, that wasn't done. Look, the reason to notify the Gang of Eight is frankly more important when things go wrong. If, the president said it was dangerous flying in, the Russians could have shot down American planes.
And the Gang of Eight was told about the bin Laden raid.
That's my understanding. I wasn't part of the Gang of Eight at that time, but that's my understanding. But had this escalated, had something gone wrong, had we gotten into a firefight with the Russians, it's to the administration's advantage to be able to say, we informed Congress we were going in, they were aware of the risks, we at least gave them the chance to provide feedback. That wasn't done here. I think that's a mistake, but let's not lose sight of the fact it was a success, and a ruthless killer has been taken off the battlefield.
But still concerned about those troops coming out?
Absolutely. I think it's a disastrous mistake to